Welcome to Clil Uncovered. In this episode, we're covering 4 chapters in one go, a real flyover of the whole approach. Based on Yolanda Ruiz de Sarobe's work from 2025, we'll look at what Clil is, the theory behind it, the evidence for it, and the classroom practices that bring it to life. So, let's go. So first, we should begin by explaining a little bit what Clil is. Clil, Content and Language Integrated Learning, is a teaching approach where students learn a school subject through a foreign or second language simultaneously. One lesson, 2 goals: content mastery and language development. It sits on a continuum. At one end, you have full immersion programs. Nearly all teaching takes place in the additional language. At the other, we can find softer versions where a language teacher shapes lessons around thematic units, for example. This is often called the hard CLIL and the soft CLIL spectrum. CLIL draws on several theoretical frameworks. First, Vygotsky's sociocultural theory, the idea that learning happens through collaboration and scaffolding within what's called the zone of proximal development. Second, Bloom's taxonomy, which pushes CLIL teachers to move students from lower-order tasks, like remembering and understanding, up toward higher-order thinking, like analyzing, evaluating, and creating. We should also mention other important frameworks, like Cummings' distinction between BICS, that stands for Basic Everyday Conversation Language, and CALP, the deeper academic language proficiency that students need for real content learning. Finally, Systemic Functional Linguistics, a language theory that focuses on language function, especially in real-world contexts, is another important contribution to CLIL. It addresses areas such as motivation, task design, pragmatic development, among others. Now, let's talk about the core principles of CLIL. These come together in the famous 4Cs framework: content, communication, cognition, and culture. Although these are the original 4Cs, other researchers have proposed replacing culture with community, and others have suggested adding a 5th C, criticality. Related to the communication aspect of the 4Cs, another important model is the language triptych. Distinguishing the language of learning, that is subject vocabulary, the language for learning, that is how you interact in class, and the language through learning, which emerges naturally as students engage with content. So, does CLIL actually deliver? The research evidence is broadly positive but nuanced. On language learning, CLIL consistently improves receptive skills, listening, reading, vocabulary. Productive skills like writing accuracy are more mixed. Several large longitudinal studies in Spain found CLIL students outperformed non-CLIL peers in overall English proficiency, even when controlling for socioeconomic background. On content and first language, the good news is that CLIL generally doesn't harm L1 development, and in many studies it didn't hurt subject knowledge either. Some studies even found a modest boost. A few, however, found neutral or slightly negative content effects, particularly for students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, which points to real equity concerns. On motivation, CLIL learners tend to show higher motivation and more positive attitudes towards language learning, at least initially. Longitudinal studies find this can dip over time as the novelty wears off. And on diversity, even though CLIL programs should always attend to students' different needs, backgrounds, and abilities, it has sometimes been criticized as elitist, attracting already advantaged students. But other research shows a so-called leveling effect, where CLIL can actually reduce these gaps when implemented inclusively. The jury is still out, but the question of who gets access to CLIL is one the field takes seriously. So let's move on to Chapter 5. This chapter turns to pedagogy, specifically two approaches gaining real traction. The first is translanguaging. Rather than enforcing an English-only classroom, translanguaging encourages students to draw on their whole linguistic repertoire, their L1, L2, and everything in between, to make sense of the content. It can be spontaneous, arising naturally in student interaction, or pedagogical, deliberately designed by the teacher. Research shows it supports meaning making without undermining target language use, though teacher beliefs and institutional expectations can get in the way. The second is multimodality, using visual aids, gestures, diagrams, and digital tools alongside language. Related to this is the concept of trans-semiotizing, combining multiple semiotic systems like language, image, gesture to co-construct knowledge. Studies from Hong Kong and Finland show that these multimodal practices deepen student comprehension, especially in science-based Clil lessons. Together, translanguaging and multimodality point Clil toward a richer, more inclusive vision, one where the classroom communicates through all available sources, not just the target language. So, in 4 chapters, we have explored what Clil is, how it is grounded theoretically, and how it can be implemented in the classroom. As Ruiz de Sarobe shows, Clil is an approach that genuinely works with many contexts, carries real challenges around acuity and implementation, and is still